Thomas, your leadership and team development expert. And every Friday I hop on here so we can do some personal development. I think it's important for leaders to do that personal development, do that inner work to really identify and work on areas that's really going to benefit them internally, right? So they can show up effectively externally. The topic about habits. It's so important that we talk about habits. And this was the theme of the week. Like I told you guys before, I'm a part of a community and I love it because we have these different topics that we talk about every week. And this week was bad habits, specifically talking about processes to really break bad habits. And I think it's important as leaders that we identify and work on good habits, but also those bad habits, because again, what we do or what we won't work on will affect how we show up as leaders. So we have to make sure that we're working through those processes of breaking bad habits and putting in place good habits, better habits, so we can show up effectively. So I love this quote that I found online. It says, habit is either the best of servants or the worst of masters. Again, habit is either the best of servants or the worst of masters. So it's showing that a habit can be so beneficial. Habits can be something that's so good for you. But also a habit, if it's on the negative side or on the addictive side or on the bad side, it can be the worst of masters, because again, we need to have control of our lives, who we are, so we can show up effectively as leaders. So again, there's different sides of habit, but our goal as leaders is to be on the good side of habit, so it doesn't affect how we show up in the workplace when we're supporting our teams. So let's define what habits is, right? A habit is a settled tendency or unusual manner of behavior, an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. And it also ties into addiction. So today I talked about specifically how bad habits can turn into something that's an addictive behavior, which could be again on the negative side. So that's what habit is, something that you do on a regular basis. Sometimes we are doing it subconsciously. Sometimes we're not aware of what we're doing. So we have to make sure that we're laying hold and identifying and utilizing the right type of habits, so again, we can show up effectively as leaders. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Habits, how to identify it, how to shift it, but also really work on including and identifying that issue and working on better habits. So today we talked about addiction, right? Because a lot of times when we think about addictive behaviors, things that we do that might be on the bad side that we're doing so repetitively, we'll think about substance abuse. We'll think about alcoholism. We'll talk about drug abuse. But I wanted to highlight this definition of addiction because it says that is the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity. So it's not just being addicted to a substance, but it's also being addicted to a thing or activity. There could be behaviors that you're doing. There could be things that you're doing on a regular basis that now have become an addictive behavior that can still affect, like it says, it affects the brain's rewards, pleasure, memory, or motivation, right? Because what happens is when you're thinking about addiction and how it affects the brain, it triggers dopamine. So it triggers that feel-good sensation that starts in the brain. And what happens is you start to utilize this process, this habit, so you can feel good. That's why they have some people who are addicted to substances. They'll utilize it because they're stressed. It's really something that they're dealing because they don't want to face the world, face their issues. They'll utilize that substance. What it does is triggers that dopamine, that feel good, and now they can't face that issue or that problem. But what happens is once a habit becomes excessive, you're doing it so frequently, now it becomes something that has flipped from just a bad habit, something you did here and there, and now it's addictive behavior. And again, as leaders, we don't want to fall into the trap of tapping into things that become these negative habits, and now it's affecting us. And now again, you can't show up as a leader in the home, you can't show up as a leader in the workplace, you can't lead your team because you have this behavior that's now affecting different aspects of your life. So I want you to think about and really go through this assessment, because what I did was find questions for you to start figuring out what kind of behaviors need to change. What kind of things are you doing that has become addictive, or even just maybe it's at a bad behavior level or bad habit level that you need to identify. So how important has that thing become to your sense of self, and the way you live your life. How important has it become? You're saying, I have to have it. I have to stop here. I have to do this, because you can have addictive behavior like lying, or maybe things that you're doing excessively with your words. So again, how important has it become to the sense of yourself? Maybe it's something you're doing so much that you feel like you have to do it because it's a way of life. The next question is, does doing it make you feel better, more in control? Does not doing it make you feel worse, right? Because they have people who say that, okay, when they have an addiction and they're trying to wean themselves off of it, they go through withdrawals. But what happens is that they feel like they have to do that behavior again, because it has become such a repetitive behavior that you do in your life that now you need it. Unfortunately, children that are born that have been addicted to substances, in order to help those children wean off of it, they still give them that substance. So that's the same thing when it comes to bad habits or behavior. What happens is that you start doing it so much that now you feel like you have to. I can't go through my day without having coffee. I can't go through my day without doing that. I can't even go through this if I don't do it. And if I don't do it, I feel worse. Now that's crossing to the threshold of now it's becoming an addictive behavior. It's becoming something that is now more controlling, and you feel like you have to do it. The next question is, do you find yourself doing it more often and for longer periods than originally planned? It's something you're doing so frequently, it's become, like I said, a habit, and it's an addiction, right? So how often are you doing it? Is it becoming something you're binging off of? And again, addiction is not solely a substance. It's a thing or an activity. Some people are addicted to working out. Some people are addicted to lying. Some people are addicted to coffee. It becomes something you're doing so regularly, you're doing it longer and longer. You start hitting that threshold, and now you need to do it more. Has doing it disrupted your life, your health, and your relationships? It's causing you to have arguments. It's causing you to do things or behave in certain ways that's affecting your relationships. It's affecting your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. So all those things can start affecting those bad habits, those addiction or those addictive behaviors can affect those areas of your life. And do you often say to yourself, you're going to do something different, but then turn around and keep doing the same thing? So again, these are things you want to ask yourself when it comes to habits and behaviors that you're doing. Has it crossed the addicted behavior threshold? Is this something that you really need to work on and identify, because this is something that you need to address ASAP? And again, as leaders, we want to make sure that we take hold of these repetitive behaviors, because it's going to show up how you lead at home, because we're not just leaders on the outside, we're also leaders at home. Is it affecting how you lead yourself? As leaders, we need to be able to lead ourselves effectively. Is it affecting how you're leading your team? So all those areas, if they're shaken up, now you can't be an effective leader. And that's why you need to take hold of these behaviors. So here's a process that I think is really beneficial to really help you through this process of getting hold of those behaviors, right? The first area, the stages of behavior change, because this is really a behavior change. And please know that certain issues and problems that you have, a coach can't fix it. You need to go to a super professional, a therapist, somebody that's a clinician, because there's certain behaviors that's so deep rooted that sometimes you have to get to the root cause, and that might require for you to not just have a coach, because having that coach is beneficial. But on the flip side, you need to also get that therapy, that counseling. I'm very open with it. Therapy has become something that I do on a regular basis, because I realized there were a lot of root issues that I needed to address, because I was leading through my trauma. The trauma I experienced as a young girl affected me into my adulthood, and now I was showing up as a leader ineffective. So sometimes we have things that's happened to us personally. Now it's affecting how we're showing up as a leader. And now it's affecting our team dynamics. People aren't motivated. They aren't inspired because you can't show up effectively in your role. So please know that there's certain issues that you need to go get professional help for, outside of just getting the coaching that you're getting to work on your personal development and your leadership development. So the first area is pre-contemplation. That's that you're unaware of the problem. Remember, sometimes we don't even know, we aren't conscious of the behaviors that's affecting us. So you need to be aware of the problem. But first, sometimes we're unaware that we have this issue. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, a loved one that says, hey, listen, so you might have this addictive behavior to this behavior, this activity, or to the substance. And now it's come to your awareness. So now contemplation is, now you're aware of the problem. and of the desired behavior change. You know what the desired behavior change is. I need to replace this with this so I no longer have this bad habit. So we need to go from that unaware phase to now we're aware of the problem. And now, what is the desired change? What are you going to put into place? What do you need to do to change that behavior so you can start walking towards better habits? So that's the contemplation phase. The next one is preparation. Intends to take action. Now you're intending to take action. You're like, you know what? I need to reach out to a coach. I need to get my leadership development right, my personal development, and I need to get a therapy, a counselor, so I can address this area as well. So you know you're intending to take action, but also it requires for you to admit that you have the issue, start working on, okay, I need to identify my triggers, but I need to get with somebody professionally to help me with that. The next thing is the action. So you in preparation, now it's time to take action. Practicing the desired behavior. Now you're practicing that desired behavior. Now you're flipping and you're saying, I no longer will do this. I'm going to replace it with this. But now you're taking it into action and you're practicing that desired behavior. So now you're saying, listen, every morning I have to have coffee. Okay, now what are you going to put into place now to change that behavior? Roy said, I'm about that action boss. Okay. Yeah, so it's like, what are you going to start doing to change that behavior? So what kind of things and practices are you going to put into place? Because it is really, we have to realize that the way our brains are shaped, again, I went back and said that with the brain, what is happening, you're getting that feel-good sensation when you do that behavior, that high control. Again, going back, right? So addiction triggers that reward center, that dopamine. So it's a feel good type of thing that you're searching. You're searching that feel good. So what you're literally are fighting that, I want to feel good, but now that desire change, you're warring with that. So now you're replacing better behaviors, better habits, so you're not going to the negative thing that's become addictive. So again, this is now taking those actions and practicing that desired behavior. I'm not going to go and get that coffee. I'm not going to that and do that addictive behavior. I'm not going to overindulge in that thing. I need to do this instead. And the last thing is maintenance. Working to sustain the behavior change. It's about maintenance. It might require you to change relationships. It might require for you to not walk down that grocery aisle. It might require you to not answer that phone call. It might require you literally completely gutting out your life, making changes and shifts and doing things different, because now you have to maintain so you don't revert back. That's why people are saying, I'm 5 years clean, I'm 10 years clean. Every day they're literally battling this maintenance plan. And that's the reality. As leaders, we have to make sure that we are maintaining positive behaviors and these desired behaviors so we don't go back to who we were in the past, where we were ineffective, we weren't showing up and supporting our team effectively, we weren't doing all these things to allow us to be effective in our roles as leaders in the household and leaders in the workspace. So remember, the process of changing behaviors is uncomfortable, but what we need to recognize is that by changing behaviors, it's going to be beneficial not for us, but also the people we support. So I love this quote here because it just touched me, because I think it really gives you the magnitude of what your individual change can do to affect change in your workplace, as a leader, and even in the home. It says, if you're working on changing bad habits, unhealthy thought patterns, negative emotions, or toxic behaviors, know that you are healing a part of this world by healing yourself. Everyone around you will benefit. I want to stop there. Everyone around you is going to benefit by you addressing that bad behavior, that addictive behavior, those bad habits. Your leadership team, your organization, your family, it's going to benefit them. So everyone around you will benefit, and they will be served by your wholeness. And that's what we're on the journey of. I want us as leaders to recognize that just because we're leaders in the household, just because we're leaders externally, we have to realize that sometimes we don't have self-leadership. We haven't addressed issues. We haven't addressed problems. We haven't addressed things that are so important that's going to help you in how you show up on the outside. So again, consistently work on changing your habits, those bad behaviors, those addictive tendencies, because again, we're still human. You need to be able to take your cape off you need to be able to take your cape off. You're still an individual, because again, by changing yourself, you're healing a part of the world. You're healing yourself. And now everybody else externally are going to benefit by your behavior change.